more about why you said what you did. A lot of the time, they then come back and they apologize and they say, you know what, I was angry when I wrote that, or maybe I, didn't fully give you as much credit as I thought you did, and maybe I still don't agree with you, but I see what you're saying and I appreciate you engaging with what I'm saying. And that's actually one of the most rewarding bits of what I do. That's one of the most fun bits about YouTube is when people come back and they reassess their own first responses to what I've made. Although there's sometimes one or two nasty comments which do get through my armour and hurt my feelings a little bit, of the very, very small number of nasty ones that I get, most of the time I'm fine and I can deal with them. I'm fairly resilient to these sort of things. I did stand-up comedy for 4 years, so I can take heckles and I can take abuse. Nobody's invincible. Some of them do get me right here, but most of the time I'm fine with it. Actually, one of the funniest hate comments I ever had was somebody called me an elf-eared f***er, which I just thought that was really, really bizarre. I was like, do I have elf ears? I wanted that on a t-shirt or on a mug or something. But occasionally, particularly when I do videos on feminism, people use the phrase white knight. Now, this one is a little bit problematic. It doesn't grievously offend me or anything. On the internet, white knight is used to mean somebody who sanctimoniously defends women on the internet. Maybe people who make feminism videos or defend women getting abused in comment sections and so on. That's what it's sometimes used to mean, but it's sometimes used to mean something slightly more. Somebody who does that, sort of falsely defends women and women's issues, in anticipation of a sexual reward. Now, I am sincere in what I say on the channel, and I do think that when I talk about feminism, I do think that it's important. So most of the time when people call me a white knight, as occasionally happens, I do charitably interpret that to mean the first meaning. They're calling me disingenuous, and then it doesn't bother me because I know that I am, in fact, sincere. But it's that second usage, that implication that the person who's a white knight has a hidden sexual motive. That's a little bit problematic because of something called the DFTBA records scandal. Between 2012 and 2014, several YouTubers signed to the DFTBA records label were found to have sexually groomed or exploited or assaulted underage fans. And then there was the Sam Pepper thing, where a famous YouTuber called Sam Pepper made a video of them committing sexual assault and put it on their channel, and then after that came out, a few other people came out of the woodwork saying that yes, they'd been assaulted by him or by other YouTubers. Because of that context, to accuse a YouTuber of having a hidden manipulative sexual motive is quite a serious thing to say, and because it happens in public forums, YouTube is a public place, anyone can read the comments, it's borderline libel, really, the written equivalent of slander. Now, that's a very serious thing to say, and I'm not going to sue anybody or anything. And people will say, oh, it's just the internet, and they're not serious, and maybe the people calling me a white knight don't know that, or calling other people white knights don't know that. And yeah, fair enough, but we shouldn't forget that that is part of the landscape. That is a thing that happened, and people suffered because of that. And we should be aware of the connotations that our language and our use of language has. I'm not trying to police what anybody says or anything, but it's maybe a term that we can afford to be a little bit more sensitive about, because there's only so far charitable interpretations can go, really. I do think it's also important that we don't use charitable interpretation as a defence when we genuinely say something wrong or phrase something badly and upset somebody. It's very, very easy to say, oh, you took it the wrong way, you should have charitably interpreted what I said, or realised that it was a joke or whatever, and use that as a defence, when what we should do is charitably interpret the people who call us out and say, okay, how have I made this person upset? Maybe I need to reassess my behaviour or my use of language, because it's important that we don't blame people when we cause them to feel upset and say, you took it the wrong way, it's your fault, rather than say, oh, actually, you know what, maybe I do owe you a little bit of an apology there. Fortunately, I am very much aware that I am preaching to the choir on this one, because 99.9% of the comments that I get on my channel are lovely. I really do think that I have one of the nicest comment sections on YouTube, so I wanted to end this video on a happy note by saying thank you to all of you guys who comment, who help me make PhilosophyTube a nice place and an inclusive place where people feel like they can share their ideas. In fact, I do get quite a few comments from people saying, I've never commented on a YouTube channel before. And I really like that, because it means that people feel that they they won't get shot down. You know, they're in a constructive place where they can float their ideas, even if they're not hugely familiar with philosophy already. That's great. So thank you to all of you guys for helping me do that. It's wonderful. You're great. You're wonderful. Thank you. With regards to the phrase white knight, well, maybe I'm just an elf-eared f***er, and maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Or am I?